Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Danny Taylor, co-owner of Vegan Proteins, and this week we are going to be talking about something that I find really interesting. We are going to be talking about the history of 1200 calories. So, I think almost every single woman that I have ever spoken to knows about the 1200 calorie diet. We have all heard at some point in our life that this is a good idea, that this is almost like a magic solution to weight loss. And I had some ideas of where this came from. I actually thought that it had something to do with MyFitnessPal and other calorie trackers, which I even talk about in my book, Flexible Dieting for Vegans, which there is still some truth to the MyFitnessPal and other calorie trackers perpetuating this myth to this day, 100%, but that's not how it started. And I started thinking about this when I thought about my grandmother, actually. When I was a little girl, my grandmother had struggled with her weight a lot over the course of her life, and I remember her talking about 1200 calorie diets. So I knew that this carried back at least that far, and I wanted to figure out, like, where did this actually start? So if you have heard of the 1200 calorie diet, you have tried the 1200 calorie diet, you've read about it in a magazine, you've heard a family member talking about it, let me know down below. I want to see if this is really as prevalent as I think it is. My camera doesn't allow me to hook up a microphone, so I'm trying to sync this with my podcast mic, but I don't know if it's gonna work. So if it's the same mediocre audio that it usually is, it means this didn't work. But hey, I'm trying. We'll get a new camera with a new microphone soon. Also, this may be our last video with the Halloween wall, as we are moving very soon. So I left it up. After today's video, I'm gonna pack it. So say goodbye to the Halloween wall for now. Okay, so in my research of where this 1200 calorie diet started, what I found was the first time that the 1200 calorie diet was in print in the United States was in a book written by Lulu Hunt Peters. She wrote a book in 1918 called Diet and Health with Key to the Calories, and published it. Now, she was a medical doctor who already had a regular newspaper column about diet and health, but she published this book in 1918, and it became a bestseller. She actually joined the American Red Cross and went over to the Balkans and was there for a couple of years, and when she came back, she found out her book was a national bestseller. And it's in this book that she talks first about her own journey. She talks about her own struggles being overweight. She doesn't tell us how tall she is, but she does tell us that she went from weighing over 200 pounds to weighing 150 pounds. And the way she did this was by eating 1200 calories. So boom, there you have it right there. To me, this is the original influencer sharing what they eat and everybody else trying to copy it. And I'll get into more about this in a second, but the concept of calories was being pretty heavily studied in Germany, but it hadn't really made its way over to the United States yet. So I'm not really sure how she learned about it, but people didn't know what calories were here in the United States. We think today about looking at nutrition labels and how easy that is, but nothing had a nutrition label back then at all. So when I actually skimmed through the book, I haven't read it cover to cover yet, but I'm planning on reading it cover to cover because I actually find it really fascinating. Most food history and diet history I think is really interesting. But what I did find was actually that she was really ahead of her time in a lot of ways. She was talking about things nobody else had spoken about at all. She was explaining energy balance, that in order to gain weight, you had to eat in excess of your maintenance calories, and in order to lose weight, you had to eat at a deficit of your maintenance calories. She was very against quick fix diets, which were popular around that time. People were doing things like eating tapeworms to try to lose weight, or buying snake oil. Like, you all hear, oh, that sounds like snake oil. No, people were literally buying snake oil. And she would say, that's not the answer. The answer is a well-balanced diet that puts you in a caloric deficit. So she was right, which I think is really fascinating. And some of the equations that she's come up with, they're not perfect, but they're actually pretty good. However, in reading what I have read of the book, it sounds to me like she herself did have a pretty unhealthy relationship with food. She mentions a lot of things about morality and eating, about being like a good, pure person if you could abstain from eating, and being kind of sinful and gluttonous if you were eating or were overeating. She also says that, even if you're eating 1,200 calories, which I'll give her credit, she said you can eat 1,200 calories of anything and lose weight, and she's not wrong. But she said, you can't have candy because women will binge on it. That's literally what it says. So that leads me to believe that she struggled with binge eating sweet foods, which doesn't surprise me, because somebody over 200 pounds or even 150 pounds, 1,200 calories is going to not really be enough for long-term health, in my opinion. But it will make you lose weight, and that, to me, is one of the reasons why people have followed it for so long. So there's this saying that I really, really love, and it is that when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem starts to look like a nail. And that is basically how I view 1,200 calorie diets. It's like, you don't know any better, but you know this is gonna do something, so you just use this 1,200 calorie low diet and cross your fingers and hope for the best. If you can sustain 1,200 calories, yeah, you'll absolutely lose weight. Most people will lose muscle, they'll feel like crap. They, extended for long periods, their hormones will shift, their hair will fall out. It's not good for the vast majority of people to consume that. So the fact that it's just this blanket statement that most women grew up knowing, oh, this is what you do if you want to lose weight, not good. Now, this is not to say that there are not some women who exist where 1,200 calories might actually be what they need, because this is a question people ask me all the time. Is 1,200 calories too low? And for most people, yes. For the vast majority of people, yes. There are some people that it's not. So any blanket statement for everybody is not good. Now, in some of the commentary that I read about Lulu Hunt Peters, people were really chastising her for this 1,200 calorie number that she seems to kind of be like the grandmother of, basically. She came up with this 1,200 calorie number. So I was inclined to believe that her book was going to say everybody should eat 1,200 calories to lose weight. But that's actually not what the book says at all. It gives you these equations that are pretty okay about how to find your maintenance calories. And then she suggests subtracting 500 to 1,000 calories from that number in order to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. That's pretty accurate. Now, I don't think people will be able to, unless you are very, very large, I don't think anybody can sustain 2 pounds of weight loss per week. So subtracting 1,000 calories a day, probably not wise. But what she was saying was her maintenance was around 2,200. She subtracted 1,000 a day. She ended up eating 1,200 calories. I can safely say that any up and around adult will reduce on 1,200 calories, for that will not supply the basal metabolism, i.e. the body's internal activities such as the beating of the heart, respiration, digestion, excretion, etc. And some of the body's stored fat will be called upon to supply the deficiency. How much one will reduce depends on how many calories are actually needed for the internal and external activities. See pages 26 and 27. It is not advisable to reduce too rapidly. So what she's saying right there is 1,200 calories is not for everybody. Yes, everybody will lose weight on it because it's not even enough for your body to function on. It's not, so your body has to pull energy from somewhere else to keep you alive, and hopefully it will pull from your fat stores. We know now it will also pull from your muscle stores, and your metabolism will adapt. It will down-regulate in order to keep you alive by basically slowing down your metabolism. This is a lot of times what people call starvation mode. It's not starvation mode, but it is an adaptation of your body slowing down because you're not giving it enough on a regular basis. And she is literally saying that right there. What happened is what I think is so common, and I'm pulling up a quote from the book here. So she came back from the Balkans, found out her book was a bestseller. 3 years after it was released, her publishers made her release meal plans after she literally wrote in her initial book, I will not be giving 1,200 calorie menu plans because I don't want people to just blindly follow these menu plans because it might not be right for them. Which to me is exactly what you should say and what you should do. And it's why if you follow anybody who is responsible at all, who's in the fitness world, and say, hey, what are your macros? Or how much are you eating? Or show me what you eat in a day. Any responsible person is going to say something along the lines of, this is what I eat, it works for me, it's probably not going to work for you because we're all different. You know, there has to be some sort of, this is not prescriptive, I'm not suggesting this for you, which is exactly what she did in her initial book. And then her publishers made her go back and re-release an updated version of the book with lots and lots of 1,200 calorie menus. And this is what she wrote at the beginning of that section. After nearly 2 years with the American Red Cross in the Balkans, I returned to find the little book has been carrying on in my absence. I write this for the 5th edition and my publishers insisting that I must furnish some more menus. They affirm that there are too many who do not care to figure it out for themselves. Have words ever been truer? No, they have not. So we have a whole series on this channel of how to find your maintenance calories, how to set up your macros once you know your maintenance calories, how to build your own menu in MyFitnessPal, and people still just want someone to fork over a generic meal plan to them so that they can follow it. So all the way back into 1921, when she wrote that little sentence there, people don't want to do the work to figure it out for themselves. They just want someone to hand them something, not think about it, and do it, which is fine. That is the benefit of a meal plan, is you don't have to think about it. But that meal plan better damn well be custom to you, or you can do some damage. So she re-released this book with dozens of 1,200 calorie meal plans. So here's an example of one of the 1,200 calorie meal plans. Breakfast, coffee with cream or sugar. Lunch is essentially a salad with sweet pickle, relish, and mayonnaise and cream cheese as the dressing. So lettuce and dressing is lunch. Afternoon tea is 3 crackers with a cup of tea, and dinner is essentially chipped beef on toast with a small side salad. That is the whole day. Anyway, she printed, dozens of these menus, and it kind of bums me out because she obviously didn't want to do this and her publishers pushed her to. And it seems like women all over the country at the time gobbled, no pun intended, gobbled these meal plans up and just started following them whether or not it was going to be the right amount of calories for them. And, most of the time it was absolutely not the right amount of calories for them. There was also the fact that this came out right after the First World War, and food rationing was on the minds of so many people. So, speaking to that morality again, you were a good person if you could personally undereat because it was patriotic to save that food for hungry children or the soldiers. So they were literally encouraging you to enjoy your hunger pangs in the books. Like I said, not a great relationship with food this woman had. She was telling you, feel proud of your hunger pangs because it means some hungry child gets to eat. Be proud of your hunger pangs because we need that food for the rest of the country, and you're also losing weight at the same time. Bravo. So just very, very interesting stuff. And then that, I think about that my grandmother's mother probably bought this book, and my grandmother probably learned from her, and she taught her daughters, and they taught their daughters. And then it comes to me being an overweight teenager who didn't really have much interest in dieting, but when it did cross my mind in high school to try out a diet, the very first thing I thought was I should restrict my calories to 1,200. So then I would go to Spark People or MyFitnessPal, and when you go to set up MyFitnessPal, it'll ask you your stats, your age, your height, your weight, and your goal. And MyFitnessPal will not allow the number to go below 1,200. So when you really want to lose weight and you plug in your stats and it says, how much weight do you want to lose? Most people are going to click the highest option, which is 2 pounds per week. So then it's going to take whatever your maintenance calories are and subtract 1,000 calories, but the program will not let you go below 1,200. So thousands and thousands and thousands and probably millions of women have signed up for something like MyFitnessPal, and because of the options they chose at the beginning, it told them to eat 1,200 calories, thus perpetuating this idea that 1,200 calories is the magic number for weight loss. So if you've ever wondered where this number came from and why it is still carried on today, the combination of these two things, that's it, baby. It is just so interesting to me, and I'm really looking forward to diving into this book and seeing how right she was about some things and how much she missed the mark on other things. But I do want to give credit where credit's due. This is a much better book than I thought it was going to be. It's more the attitude towards food and the attitude towards restriction and the attitude towards being fat that I, don't agree with. And obviously I think it was a really terrible idea to publish all of these 1,200 calorie meal plans, because just like influencers on IG today, they post their terrible undercaloried meal plan and people will just go do it. So this goes back for over a century. So fascinating. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Do you like these kind of videos, like the body quackery video we did? Do you like this kind of video? Because I love diet and food history, and I'm very curious to do more things like this. So if you're enjoying it, let me know, and let me know what you think about all this. I'm so interested to hear if you guys think this is as interesting as I think it is. And you can download this book for free, by the way, on Gutenberg.org. You can download the whole book for free, and I think it's totally worth the read. And she illustrated it herself, which is kind of adorable too. So anyway, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Come over and join the Facebook group, the Muscles by Brussels Facebook group. I will leave it in the comments down below. That's where we can have a big discussion about this sort of thing. And we will talk to you next week. Take care. Bye.